You're listening to the Launchcast, the podcast about leadership, business, life, and growth with me, your host, George Andriopoulos.
It's like food for your ears.
What's next on the agenda? Let's Get Checked. This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked, the leading provider of at-home health tests. Guys, are you looking to improve your thyroid levels? With Let's Get Checked, you can do a simple at-home health test that will give you a complete picture of your hormonal health in just 5 days. Fabrizio, you should be all over this, man. Let me throw some facts at you. Did you know that 42% of people have said that they have never tested their thyroid function? Thyroid function is important for a number of different functions like regulating metabolism, stimulating digestion, bone maintenance, brain development, cardiovascular health. I feel like I'm your doctor, Fabrizio. Now, some of the main symptoms of thyroid imbalance include, and I'm going to check these off for you, buddy. Weight gain, check. Fatigue, check. Slow pulse or heart rate, how should I know? Hair loss or thinning, check. Poor tolerance of the cold, depression, who knows? Dry, coarse, or thickened hair. Constipation, yes, thanks for too much information, but yes, check, Fabrizio. Hand tingling or pain, irregular period, or low sex drive. You have both, Fabrizio. Congratulations. Muscle cramps, impaired memory. Now, how does the process work? Your test is delivered straight to your doctor. You just have to self-collect your blood sample from the tip of your finger. Fabrizio, don't make that face. Don't be a baby. You self-collect the sample from the tip of your finger, mail the sample back to their accredited labs in the prepaid label, and receive support and guidance from the LGC medical team, who are available 24/7 to offer you the personalized advice you need to know your hormonal health. Now, this week, Let's Get Checked wants to invite you to join their community with the 30% discount code LaunchCast30. That's our code. It's in the show notes. Check out the link in the show notes, use LaunchCast30, and get checked, guys. You too, Fabrizio. What are you waiting for? Go.
At this time, I'm going to ask that you fasten your seatbelts.
Launch sequence.
Launch sequence activated.
Launch sequence activated.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Launchcast. 35 episodes, I still have goosebumps. Episode 135 today. It's called Technology Gets Fancy, and you're going to find out why in a minute. We got a good one today. We're doing all the usual stuff, and of course that means it's the LaunchDad himself, George Andriopoulos, bringing you your favorite podcast on the planet. Leadership, business, life, growth. You know the deal as the beat drops.
Into the black hole.
Guys, thanks for joining me today. We have a good one today. I told you we're bringing back an interview today as we come to the end of the live shows in a few weeks, and then we start the Launchcast reboots for 3 months before we get into season 2. I want to jump right in and introduce our guest today. Let me bring him on screen here. There we go. There he is. Hey, Greg.
What's up, George? How you doing, buddy?
How are you, man? Thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to give you guys the brief rundown here on Greg Spillane, our guest. Greg brings a unique combination of hands-on technical experience and a track record of large-scale business development. Greg's professional career began as a developer. Shortly after, he founded a technology company where he brought several cloud-based products to market. After they were acquired, Greg went on to lead business development with several of the top global technology consulting firms in the world, where he was directly responsible for generating over $250 million in revenue. In 2014, Greg's passion for building high-growth technology companies led him back to startups, where he joined Bump as their CEO. He spearheaded their eventual pivot to events.com, maintaining responsibility for all product development, sales, marketing, client services. Greg has since led the successful turnaround of several other technology companies and has built a reputation as a team builder who can identify market opportunities, design innovative offerings, and then effectively commercialize them to large markets. Since becoming CEO of Fancy.com, Greg has gotten them back to their roots as a leader in online retail. We have so much more to talk about with Greg, but again, I want to thank you just for being here. I'm so excited today. Because, for those that listen to the show on a weekly basis, we talk to such an array of people. We had a Broadway star on a couple of weeks ago. We've had authors, we've had producers, we've had everything. And so being a business guy myself, being a corporate turnaround guy, I get so excited when I get to talk to a business person, man.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to be here. I've had a chance to listen to a couple of things you've done, and I love your show and your approach to things. And I think there's a lot of similarities in regards to how we've come up and just I know I had a moment early in my career where I looked at myself in the mirror and made a decision. The path I was on wasn't necessarily the path I wanted to be on, and took a really purposeful approach to just really working hard and going down a direction. And, I think, that kind of mentality has ultimately led to where I've gotten to today. And, I'm really excited to speak to you about it. Yeah,
man. And that's really what it is in terms of unconventional leadership, right? A lot of people that listen to this show, we have, excuse me, we have such an array of people that listen to it. But for me, the target audience that we're going after, it's people that want to hear these unconventional stories of leadership, and just to hear a journey that was maybe not too dissimilar from their own, and they can go, oh man, I've been through that. Maybe I can be a leader. Maybe I could start a company, right? So I'm excited to jump in, man. So I'm going to ask you the first question that we always start these interviews with, and this is pretty obvious for you, but Greg, are you a leader?
I like to think of myself as a leader. I'm a leader by title for sure. And I continue to evolve in what I think is becoming a real leader, which is somebody that, can inspire and, can get people to want to follow them. And that doesn't happen overnight. I think that truly is something that has taken me time. I mean, I've been in situations, I founded a company in my early 20s, and you're immediately a leader by definition, right? I mean, there's people that report up to you and that are your employees. But, for you to be a true leader, to be someone that people want to rally behind, people that want to believe in, are going to put their lives and their careers and their livelihood behind, and you can inspire them and lead them and allow them to do, great things. That takes time. And, that's still something that I'm working on and trying to make myself better every single day.
Yeah. I love that, man. Love that. Let's start way back. I know right now, what you do as the CEO of Fancy.com, you're married, you have kids. How many kids do you have?
Got 2 daughters. I got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
2 daughters. Yeah. And so, but we're going to go way, way back. You grew up in a blue collar family, right? You had a mom that stayed home and a dad that was blue collar. And although successful as a blue collar person, right, still had that just working mentality, grind it out.
That's right, man. Yeah, my very blue collar family. Neither of my parents were college educated. Actually, my entire family is blue collar. I think I might have been one of the, and I come from a big family. And I think I might have been one of the first people in my family to actually graduate from college, just to give you some perspective. So that's going back to all my aunts and uncles throughout our life. All of them self-employed, all self-made. Many of them have made a very nice life for themselves. So, I did grow up in a suburban neighborhood, and, it wasn't like, we went without. We definitely weren't the richest kids on the street, but we weren't the poorest either. But the one thing my dad did do is my dad went to work Monday through Saturday, for 30 years in a row. I mean, never took a day off. We, was very hesitant to go on vacations. I mean, the guy like came in and he ran his business, and, the businesses he run was like in, the auto business, and, he had an auto detailing center and auto repair center and all these different types of things, like very blue collar. But my dad, if he taught me one thing, was, number one, work ethic. But then number two, and I think it's also something that just personally, has really stuck with me and helped with me, is just like a true love for his kids and his family. He was coaching my basketball games. He was making sure that he was all there, my brother and sister's Little League games, my Little League games. And so he was always there for us. And family was always extremely important. But yeah, no silver spoon in this mouth.
Yeah. And so I find it really, really interesting that, although growing up in that kind of environment, you grew up with a chip on your shoulder, right? That sort of drove you to success. Talk about how that drove you throughout your, your teenage years all the way through, today, really. Yeah,
it's a great question, man. I'm a very competitive person, and I, that's manifested itself in athletics and a lot of different types of things. So, kind of growing up in a situation where, you do got a little bit of a blue collar background, and, we weren't, there were a lot of things that we didn't have. It was like sometimes we weren't driving the best car, and, you kind of get embarrassed with that stuff as a little kid. And, there's people around you that you see that are able to do more or do better vacations, or they're taking their trips to Hawaii, right? I mentioned to my dad, like that guy worked, 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year, right? So I started to want more, and I did have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I didn't feel necessarily entitled, but I also felt like I knew the life I wanted to live, and I was going to work extra hard for it. So, I think that really manifested itself when I really kind of got out of college, and it was time to get my career going. And, I saw the path that I was on, and I realized it was like, no, this isn't what I want to do. I want to do more, and I want to be more, and I want to live a life that, that people all, want to live, kind of this aspirational lifestyle. So, at that point, it was a lot of work, and it's been years and years and years in the making to kind of get to the point where, I feel good about, where I am and what I was able to do for my family and my kids. But if it wasn't for that sort of chip on my shoulder, and I've known a lot of other people that it was almost like life came too easy for them. I don't know if I would have been able to overcome a lot of the obstacles that were put in my way, or some of the adversity that was in place. And I had that drive and that determination to sort of like self-motivate, to do the things I've done to get to where I am today.
Yeah, amazing. And that really showed up early on in your life in sports, right? As an athlete, you first came into the spotlight as a star high school athlete, obviously playing football. What was, I mean, sports is, and that's another thing. That was a way, me and my dad bonded. My dad's an athlete, and, I was 9 years old, and we were going to the local gyms playing pickup basketball with, high school and college kids. And, he would get me on the court, and I'd be like a little kid in the corner, like, kind of, trying to hold my own and that type of thing. But, I grew up playing sports with him, grew up playing, different types of things. It was a passion I've always had. And then, in high school, I played, all three sports: baseball, basketball, football. And, football, it was like a shock to me. I never even thought about, really, I wasn't planned. I always dreamed about being a professional athlete, but I didn't even really know that, you could get these scholarships and what it meant and how it worked. But, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and I had some people come to me and they're like, hey man, I think you got a real shot in football. Like you can, this is something you can do in college. You could get your college paid for, you can have all those types of things. So, really dedicated to my sport. And, I was lucky enough to attend undergrad on a football scholarship. Yeah, and I love how you made the correlation with your dad. You mentioned before a pivot in life, right? And I talk about this on my show all the time. It was that moment for me that I knew things had to change. I had to get my shit together in a different way and really become the man that I was always meant to be, to fulfill the potential I had. And so, as a dad, right, and you can totally understand this. As a dad, it's funny because you want to impart that on your kids, but not have it come off contrived. My daughter is 12. My son is 10. I'm having another little one in a few weeks.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah. And so, as they were younger, and especially my son, not only do you want to teach them about the mistakes that you made and the lessons that you've learned, but that's not something that you could just teach a little kid. And so sports, for me, was always the way to be able to do that. I did the same thing. I coached my son's basketball team, his football team, and so in coaching, it's always been about the other parts of it, right? The game is the fun part for us, but the sportsmanship, the teamwork, the camaraderie, all of that stuff for me is so important in coaching, because that's how I can sort of impart these life lessons, to my kids.
Right.
And it's amazing how sports does that.
Couldn't agree more. I often say that my athletic background was the most influential time of my life in regards to sort of the principles that I've, I guess, used not only personally and sort of introspectively, but as a leader, and philosophies on building a team. But I mean, there's so many things that come out of athletics, just from the meritocracy aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, sports is a meritocracy, a true meritocracy. Like, the scoreboard doesn't lie. You're going to get out on the field or the court, or, it's, one-on-one, whatever your sport is. And it's like the best person's going to win. Right. And then, you think about the time and effort and the work, like you can't hide in sports. Like if you're not willing to put in the work up front, it's gonna show itself when you get out there and you compete on the field or whatever it is. And then, just concepts of being coachable, right? You think about kind of this concept of like a lot of people have a really hard time taking feedback, and I think that's normal. Nobody likes to be criticized, but you as an athlete, have to get used to that, right? Like you're going to have a coach that's going to tell you when you don't do something right, and you learn, and that's how you get better. And you just sort of like translate that to the professional world, and then you add stuff like teamwork and camaraderie and shared and common goals, and you just see there's this giant correlation between what makes a great athlete and a great team, and what makes like a really high performing business culture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Talk to me about what kind of guy you were back in high school, back in your early football days.
Oh, dude, I was a total meathead. I really was, man. I was just your typical. I'm a big guy. Obviously, I was able to play football. Played all the sports, kind of all I cared about. Did your typical meathead things with my friends and getting in trouble and doing stupid things. I think back in high school, truthfully, I was clueless. I didn't know what I was doing. I think you're growing in yourself. You're trying to be an adult. You're trying to be, kind of figure out the social aspect of things, figure out girls, figure out friends. Where do you sit? Where do you stand? High school feels so big when you're in it, and then you get out of it and you realize it's just this little speck of life. But yeah, man, I think I'm still kind of a meathead. I definitely have some meathead tendencies that come out at time. But yeah, that's kind of who I was.
Yeah, well, that it's amazing to admit that, man, because we talk about this on the show a lot, the balance phenomenon. It's a concept that I use in my leadership coaching, where we sort of can recognize that we are all of these different versions of ourselves, right? So we may, and I followed the same path, man. Played football when I was younger, and in my 20s was a complete meathead for 10 years. And so, even though I have moved on from that, that's still a part of me as well. Yep. And that competitive side, especially with athletics, with basketball, man, does it come out, and that's okay, because it's part of you. And so when you can sort of recognize that and show that to everybody, show everybody your full authentic self, that's when people really engage with you, and they could listen to your storytelling, and as a leader, of course, it's immeasurable, the effects of being authentic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And so let's move on to college. So you attended San Diego State University on a football scholarship, and you now possess 2 graduate degrees, including an MBA from the University of Southern California, Marshall School of Business. You played Division I football with San Diego State. You played left tackle, started for 3 years. You were redshirted your freshman year, and you helped lead San Diego State to its first bowl appearance in 12 years. That's
Man,
amazing.
You've done a lot. You've done a lot of research on me.
That's what we do here on the Launchcast.
That's all correct.
That's what we do here. And you mentioned before you're a big dude. You're 6'5", but at the time you were just over 300 pounds. And I've heard interviews. We don't have to get into this stuff, but I've heard interviews about maintaining the size and the physique that you've done, and I know what kind of work that is to do that. And you played with guys that were on a big level, guys that moved on to the NFL and played pro for years. So I want to talk about 2 aspects of playing college ball, discipline and teamwork. So the first one is discipline. Talk about the effect of the discipline of not only being an athlete in terms of playing on that team at a high level, but also the discipline it took to maintain the body and everything that goes with being an athlete. What kind of effect did that have long term on your life?
Yeah, no. So, I came in, we had a big class. So I was recruited. There were 24, 26, something like that, high school freshmen that came in my year. So we had just brought in a brand new coach 2 years before. Ted Tollner had come from USC. Or I'd come from the Rams. He was the head coach at USC prior to that. And it was like their first big recruiting class. So it was like 26, 28 of us, something like that. I think 8 of us graduated out of that class. 8 of us, and I, not just graduated college, like made it through the entire 5 years. And I would say that we lost 6 or 7 of those people that came in within the first year. And what you realize real early on is there is nothing entitled. You are not guaranteed anything. You are not guaranteed to play. You are not guaranteed to even remain on the team. And I was not going to be one of those people that didn't make it. When I was able to get a scholarship, it was a big deal, right? I'm really proud of that accomplishment with my friends, with my social groups, my family, and the thought of failing out with school or just not ever being able to play or not being able to work hard was not going to happen. Right. Yeah. So that drove me to do the things that I had to do, which, included putting on about 70 pounds over about a 18-month period of time. And, as you can imagine, that's a really difficult thing to do. And the discipline of, protein shakes and just forcing yourself to eat at night. And, it'd be 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and it'd be like, oh, I guess I got to, eat a large pizza to myself, or I'm going to come in tomorrow and I'm going to have lost a pound. And, getting into the weight room and working out and all the things that were necessary for me to go from a 230 pound kid coming out of high school to being big enough to compete at that level. So, I think that was one of the first times in my life that I wasn't able to skate by. And I realized early on that if I just tried to kind of go through the motions and skate by and just be that meathead that just didn't really care that much and just did what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, they don't care. They're going to move on. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing on their end. It's just, that's the way life works at that high level of academic or at athletics. And I think that's kind of what carried me through as I've moved into my professional life.
Yeah. And talk about the teamwork aspect of it. You talk about this being the highest level of academic athletics, right? Before going pro. And so this is, for those guys that are going pro, this is teaching you, this is going above the fundamentals of the game to going to the mechanics of the game, the IQ of the game. And it takes a solid team to be able to execute at that level. Talk about what teamwork was like back then and how that's affected you professionionally.
Yeah, truly for me, it was like a band of brothers. And to this day, my best friends in the world are the guys that I went to school with. Yeah. I mean, literally to this day. And these are guys that I see all the time. I get together all the time. Our wives are all friends. Our kids are all friends. We vacation together. We do things together. And these are people who we were teammates together. And you know, at that age, and I don't think it's abnormal, you know, for college kids to kind of build their best friends, you know, during that experience. Obviously, you're all coming together. It's your first time on your own. You know, you're getting out of like, you know, just the kids you happen to hang out with because you were kids, but, you know, you start to like mold the people who are the most like you, and you go through similar experiences. But, you know, having been on a couple, you know, good teams and having been on a couple not so good teams, I think the one thing about the teamwork side of it that is kind of I've taken more into like later in life is the shared vision or the shared goal of a team, right? I mean, you know, you get out there and there's this like deep belief that you're going to win a championship every single year. It doesn't matter who you are. Like players, I think that's the one thing that when you're not a player, you know, you're like, you look at a team and you're like, oh yeah, they're, you know, San Diego State's playing Oklahoma this week. San Diego State has no chance to win that game, right? They're a 37-point underdog or whatever it might be. And when you go out there and you talk to the players on that field, every single one of them is going to look you dead in the eye and truly believe they can beat Oklahoma that week. And every single person on the team feels that way. And I think that's what the job of the coach is. But it's that kind of shared vision and then shared experiences that sort of build that camaraderie and that band of brothers, which makes people so close. But ultimately, it's that shared vision or goal, and whether it's in a business world or an athletic world, that I think really makes a strong team. So everyone's kind of working towards the same direction and the same objective.
Yeah. Yeah, and that leads into the next point I wanted to make. So I have a quote here from you from an article in observer.com that I love. And this is such an interesting concept to me. So you said, in football, there are winners and losers on almost every play. Whether it's two linemen battling over the line of scrimmage, a receiver matched up against a cornerback, or a running back taking on a blitzing linebacker, somebody is always trying to beat you. In business, you are competing against other companies in your space. Your employees are your team, and you spend your time preparing to beat your competition. Having people on your team who are competitive, who can work within a team environment, and who understand the importance of hard work can give you a heads up in business. To succeed in a competitive world, you have to be relentless in your desire to win. Now, this is what I do too, man, right? I'm a corporate turnaround guy. It's what my company does, and this is what I built my career on. And so in promoting culture, I know that today you have to make sure that everyone in your organization is a stakeholder and feels just as important as the person next to them. But then you have standouts too, right? You have the leaders. Is there a way, in your opinion, in today's culture to successfully integrate competition and drive without creating an overly competitive culture that can become toxic?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I do. The short answer is I do. And I don't think there's anything wrong. Like if you're going to just take that analogy forward into the professional world, if you're building a team, the objective of your organization is to do X, right? And in most cases, you could just simplify it as, hey, we want to build something that's big and successful. And, you know, if you're in a startup world, hopefully we sell it and all of our options are worth lots of money. And, you know, we go buy an island somewhere and retire, right? I mean, it's simplistic, but there is this kind of common goal in the startup world of like, hey, we're all joining onto this thing. And we want to build this great company that can stand up there, that becomes kind of a household name, and then obviously the personal gains that go along with it. I always tell people when I hire them, the very first thing I say to them is, if you want to show up, work 9 to 5, punch a clock, get a nice paycheck, do your work, leave at night, have an employee handbook handed to you on day one, and just do what's expected from you, go work at a big company. Like that, that's great. Big companies are amazing at giving you those types of jobs. But if you want to come in here and you want to build something and actually be a part of creating something where your thumbprint is on what this thing eventually becomes, but you understand that there's going to be some unknowns, there's going to be some turbulence at times, you got to be able to kind of embrace that side of it. Then the startup world, or this is the type of company you want to be in, right? So that's where I think that the team aspect comes from. We're all working to beat an external force, kind of similar to a football team. Now, on the internal side of the competition, I think healthy competition is fine in certain roles. Salespeople, like if you have a sales team, like I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting a salesperson wanting to be the top sales guy in the organization and being able to quantify those numbers so that like those people can use those internal metrics to kind of measure where they sit in the organization. But when you do get into more of the operational side or the product side or the software development side or whatever it is, I don't think that the competition necessarily manifests itself toxically where they are competing against each other as much as it's sort of this grouping together of the different teams with an external view of who we're trying to, compete against or beat and eventually what we want to measure success as.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I completely agree with you on that mindset. For me, it's always been about, in consulting for a company and trying to get, a company focused on growth and moving in a different direction. There has to be a competitive drive somewhere in there. And again, you don't want to turn them against each other in competition necessarily, but there is an element of that sparks something inside of people that they may not have known was there. So I completely agree with you on that. Before we move on from college ball, were there any aspirations of moving on to the NFL?
Yeah. Short answer is yeah. I mean, look, sports at all levels will tell you when you're done. It's like there's a lot of high school athletes that want to go on and play college, and if the sport decides that you've reached your peak, it's going to be really difficult to play college, or at least at the level you want to play in. And the same was with pros. And then you see it with professional athletes all the time, right? Like lots of professional athletes retire not because they're tired of playing football. It's just that football has gotten to a point where there's no place for them. So I had a pretty decent career, not amazing, but good. Like I was a 3-year starter on a Division I football team and did well. But I'm kind of a slender guy. I played a position where a lot of the guys that are in the NFL that have moved on are 6'7", 330 kind of naturally, where I'm more of like a 6'4". I weigh 205 right now, just to give you some perspective on kind of like, my actual frame. So I worked really hard to be able to get the most out of my body as I could. But, I think that next level, I just didn't have the physical tools. And, just because I wanted to play, I think the writing was on the wall that, this was probably the end. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you moved on after your college career. It's like you said, the body changed right away. Within 6 months, you lost just about 100 pounds when you moved on from football. And then the focus on the professional career. This episode is sponsored by the Leadership Experience. Hosted by yours truly, the LaunchDad himself, George Andriopoulos, CEO of Launchpad 516, Media Convergence, coach at the Leadership Experience and Podcast Experience, public speaker. You know the deal. You know me. I'm going to start talking about the class. Guys, this is an intentional, unconventional leadership journey via a coaching masterclass. It is 6 weeks of intense work on your leadership and bringing that leadership out to your platform. Unconventional journeys, the mission statement, which by the way is the end goal, building the mission statement, leadership theory, inspiration theory, the balance phenomenon. We handle it all. Now, the add-on tracks, how you execute. 4 available tracks. Public thought leader track, that's for public speakers, writers, social activists, social influencers. That's how you take your leadership to the stage, to the page, everywhere. the entrepreneur track for business owners and aspiring business owners, the career leader track for professionals looking to bring their leadership to a new level, and the podcast experience, building your own podcast start to finish, all the tech specs, all the leadership stuff, bringing your message to the people, and more. Interview 101, voice 101, the whole deal. It is a killer class. Hit me up about that. Now, what's new? We have some self-paced online stuff that's happening in mid-August. There will be a leadership in organizational management certification available. There will be a podcast self-paced course. We have so much going on. The new live cohort starts the week of August 3rd. theleadershipexp.com. Book it. PM me for details. We have some workshops coming up. Guys, activate your leadership now. theleadershipexp.com. Music's over, but the class is just getting started. So your professional career began as an engineer, a developer, in which you worked to develop a platform that enabled streaming content over the internet. What was your plan out of college?
Yeah, it happened pretty quick. It was kind of abrupt. I realized I didn't have a whole lot of a plan until it was kind of over and it was time. But the internet had just started to really, this is, I graduated college in 2000, so I was kind of finishing up in 99. And, obviously I kind of missed that internet, boom and bust that occurred. But I saw the potential of what the internet was, and I knew that this was going to revolutionize the world. This was going to change the world, and it had already started to. But I knew that's where I wanted my career to be. I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be something to do with the internet and grow the internet. So I did. I started as an engineer, but I was self-taught. This was kind of like me getting into a room, and I was technical, and I had a computer when I was pretty young, and I'd always kind of dabbled around and was doing different things, building little websites and photo manipulation and digital type stuff. But I started to teach myself how to code, and I got a role with a company called Modern Age Media, and I was developing, and not a great developer. And after a relatively short period of time of sitting behind a computer and coding for 8 hours a day, I realized this is not what I want to do, man. Yeah. It just wasn't who I was. I liked doing it when it was for me and I was learning and I was teaching, but like the monotony of doing it sort of based on what somebody else is asking me to do was just not it. So, my career kind of evolved from that. And then, leading eventually to me starting my own company. What honestly happened was, I couldn't necessarily get the job that I wanted because I didn't have the pedigree behind me. I was like this jock athlete. My degree wasn't in comp sci. I was kind of a self-taught coder. And big tech companies, weren't coming. Like IBM wasn't knocking on my door, right? And I sort of had to make my own path. And that's kind of where that happened. I mean, it started with a freelance project that turned into something bigger than I was able to do on my own. And I went out there and I kind of fake it till you make it mentality. I said, yeah, absolutely. We'll do this for you. I'll do this for you. And I was like, I can't actually do this, but I bet you I can find somebody who can. And I went out there and I hired a guy, a local engineer, and kind of ran the front end of it, the product management side of it, the customer relationship side of it. And it was a really successful project. And I was like, you know what, I could turn this into a business. Yeah. I could turn this into a consultancy. And, we started to kind of grow on word of mouth. And, obviously this is a great time to be in tech. Every single company out there was moving towards digital and digital transformation and taking offline processes and trying to move them online. And so we had a lot of business and, slowly but surely started to grow our team. And then, I don't want to jump ahead or step on any questions, but, that's what ultimately led to us building a couple different products for customers that we made it, a determination like, hey, look, this is something we can license, right? Yeah. Like this was something we built for customer A. We still own IP on this. Why don't we go ahead and just resell this to a larger customer base?
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. And so, as you mentioned, you founded Spycore Interactive, right? A full service digital agency, which was eventually acquired. So talk about the experience of bootstrapping a startup for the first time. I mean, this was your first foray into this, and you've taken this and turned this into a career consulting on startups.
Yeah, man. It was great. It was fun, but it exposed every weakness I had in so many capacities, and ultimately led to kind of the whole MBA path and that moving forward. But look, I didn't come from a world where I understood things like venture capital.
Yeah.
I mean, I bootstrapped this thing, and I mean, I remember maxing out credit cards to make payroll, and things like cash flow management was like, I just had no concept going into how difficult that was, and understand that, AP, sitting on your books is great, but not that great if you have no money to pay your employees on Friday, right? That type of stuff. So, it was a struggle. I felt like everybody else around me was making money. I feel like I was like living on top ramen and I was bouncing at a bar on Saturdays to make extra cash, right? It was like that kind of thing. And that was, the first couple of years. Obviously it got a little bit better, as we went along, but I didn't know how to run a business. What I knew how to do was build product and sell product. And that allowed me to be successful kind of in spite of myself. But a lot of the sort of fundamentals of what it actually takes to run an organization, to be a leader, to hire the right kind of people, that stuff came later. And I got a lot of scars from that time that, I've been able to bring with me. But it was definitely an educational experience. It was tough. You had to go through a lot of things. I don't think I would have the stomach to do it again today. But I don't think I would have ever gotten to where I got to today without that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question here in relation to that's not on the agenda, because I want to share this with you as well. Give me your, I would say your worst, not your worst quality, but what were you not good at back then in the startup time that you have now turned into a strength? Your greatest weakness back then as a startup founder that you've turned into a strength today?
One of the things I remember used to doing a lot back then that got me into trouble is taking on unprofitable business. And I would always do it with the like, hey, yeah, I know we're not going to really make money on this, but this is a great logo, or this is a really interesting project, or this is something that I can, build a good case study about. And, I can use this later to be able to build more business. And although I think that there's some truth buried in there somewhere, it also gets you in a situation where you can fail pretty easily as a company if you don't manage cash flow. Yeah. And I think cash flow is like the one thing that, I didn't have that concept of it. So, I would get in a situation where I would win a project or I would bid on a project, even though it wasn't really profitable, we weren't going to make money, because, I've justified it for some reason. And sometimes just to have cash come through the door. And I think now what I've gotten a little bit better at is just understanding the importance of profitable work and healthy margins and being able to actually make money as a company. So that's one lesson.
Yeah, I love hearing that, man. That's what this thing is about, is growth. Mine was managing people. Oh, I sucked so hard. I was so good at what I did for a living, but I sucked at managing. And to know that, we're talking about like 2001, 2002 here when I became a manager out of college. Yeah. And it's almost 20 years later. And that's, I pride myself on being able to motivate people now to the best of their ability. So yeah, there's something to be said about those periods, man, those lean periods where you're just working your ass off and fake it till you make it. And sometimes you just don't know what's going on. And you learn about it, going through it. Talk about I want to talk about the acquisition for a minute before we move on. So this company was acquired eventually, right? What was that process like for you? And is this something that was planned, or did this come as a surprise to you?
It was an opportunity that presented itself. We had built some software specific to the real estate space, and this is, going back to 2006. Real estate was was kind of starting to slow down. I saw some of that writing on the wall. We built basically what we had done is we built some software. We weren't calling it SaaS at the time, but what it did is it tied into all the MLS listings, and then we took Google Maps, which was kind of new at that time, and we were overlaying properties on maps. At that time, believe it or not, people weren't doing that. You would do a search for real estate and they would give you a list and there'd be addresses and stuff, but you had no idea where the actual houses are. Now, with Redfin and Trulia and all that, everyone just expects to see houses plotted. And so we built some software that did that. And that was what we were licensing out. And that really became core of our business. So there was a competitor in the space that really liked that software. And, they were interested in buying it. And I had a partner at the time that I had brought on that we were doing a lot of our development out of Eastern Europe. So what ended up happening is it was kind of like almost two separate transactions. We were able to sell off the software, and then my partner took over the consulting side of the business after that. I did okay on that. But quite frankly, I was a little bit founder fatigued. I think it was time to move on and do different types of things. I saw the growth and the things that I wanted to do in my life. And like I said, I wasn't aware of venture capital. We were still bootstrapping it at the time, so. Being able to grow organically was tough. So the opportunity presented itself, and I jumped on it. And I was able to, cash out and, do some things with that. It was nice. I obviously still work. I haven't bought my island yet, but it was a pretty great experience. It was a long time in the work and a long time in the conversations. I can't say that when I started that company, I started it with the idea of being acquired. And it was just kind of a lot of like heads down work and building some great stuff and kind of building a great reputation, and it presented itself, and I took it.
Yeah. What was your headspace once that went down? I mean, was it just time for a little bit of a break, or were you ready to move on to the next step?
We were very SMB focused. Being in this kind of real estate world, a lot of our customers that were ultimately, and we had some corporate clients that we were doing some, custom development with here locally in kind of the Southern California area, where people like Fidelity and Pfizer and those types of companies. But, the software that really became core to our business, the real estate side of it, was, a lot of brokerages, local realtors, that type of thing. And and this is maybe that little chip on the shoulder type of thing where, it's like until you experience something, the grass can always seem a little greener. And, I was always looking up at this world that just seemed so sexy to me, this like management consulting world, right? Like these, this Accenture and Deloitte and these companies that are going in and working with these Fortune 500 companies and just doing these really cool, innovative things and, big budget, millions of dollars and those types of things. And I just felt like I wanted to go into that world and I wanted to experience that world because I thought that world was sexy. It just felt cool. Ironically, after going into that world, I ended up back in the startup world, and that's where I really love and that's my passion. But that's where my head was at that time. I was kind of ready to get out of what at the time felt like little league and go to the big leagues.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you moved on to work with several of the top IT service companies in the world, leading global engagements with Fortune 500 clients in a broad range of industries. You eventually moved on to Granicus as COO, and then Events.com, or Bump, that became Events.com, as COO. And while you were there, the company was named a top company culture by Entrepreneur, which is incredible. What an incredible accomplishment.
One of my most proud accomplishments.
Yeah. And I see, and I know where the athletics come in with this, but I see what, how important culture is to you, at a company, as the leader of an organization, man. When somebody wants to be there, how great is that? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you moved on then to Director of Growth Maven, and eventually to Fancy.com. So Fancy was founded in 2010, and it's a leading technology platform to aid social discovery of extraordinary lifestyle products, connecting creators, curators, and consumers. I was so interested when I got the email about this appearance, because I've actually been following Fancy for about 4 years, and I looked back into my email to find my first email from Fancy, and it was October 17th, 2016. I found the first email, and I'm almost positive it was a Facebook ad or something that I had seen at the time. And I remember it just being a product that like stood out to me. And I was like, oh shit, what is that? I've never seen anything like that. And so that's when I started following the company and downloaded the app. I love what this brand is about, man. That's what stuck out to me. For me, if something is different, that's when I'm down for it. That's when I'm interested. I get engaged. It's so slick, easy on the eyes, the app, everything about the branding and different products. Was that always the core of the company, just to be different?
Yeah, the core, Fancy started almost more like a Pinterest, if anything. I mean, I've actually, seen that described. I think there was like a Rolling Stones quote. They called it like Pinterest for dudes. And what it was more than anything, well before commerce, was just a place people could share what they considered cool. Like, I found this thing. This is amazing. This is a cool product. This is a cool car. It's a cool watch. This is a great bag. Like, look at this thing, how amazing this gadget is. And, it started off, and then the technology was built really around people posting and sharing images. And, and there was a social aspect to it. People would, fancy, quote unquote, fancy, which is our version of like. So they would fancy things that they liked, and you would create your portfolio, your brand, of things that like represented your taste or your aspirations or, who you were. And that's really where the core of it came from. So it was always, and I know the word cool is kind of like, it's tough to describe exactly what that means. But, the concept of Fancy was always a place to find and share the coolest products in the world and cool products to you. And it really had a little bit of a kind of an urban chic, high-end sensibility to it, right? Like that's who it was. It wasn't, Pinterest is a little bit more cottagey. This was like, hip hop, right? This was like, this is the coolest product in the world that a Middle Eastern sheik would be into, or Drake would be into, or, whatever. You would see something in Beverly Hills, California. And then the evolution of commerce sort of came from that, where people were coming and they were sharing and they were liking and there were amazing products. People were like, dude, how do I buy this? Like, I want this thing. And, they eventually built it into a platform that allowed us to, to sell, and the company kind of went from there.
Yeah. And I love that you use those words, urban chic. I think that's what drew me to the brand initially. I remember starting my company in 2013, and we were doing logo design, and I told the graphic designer I wanted something like New York City chic boutique, and that's the thing that stands out to me. And so, man, incredible branding that you guys have over there. I want to know, and so you mentioned Drake, who was one of the early investors, Kanye West, Drake, Justin Bieber, Ashton Kutcher, Will Smith. So there was always something about this organization. What drew, well, let me say first, the company valued at nearly $1 billion, Fancy.com, through lavish parties and overextended their resources years ago, and I guess got into a situation where they needed a change in leadership. And so how did your role with Fancy.com come about?
Yeah. So, going back a few years and kind of getting back into the startup world, I'd gone back, I'd got my MBA at SC, kind of after that SpyCore, and for a lot of the reasons I had mentioned. Just I knew I had some gaps. I needed to learn the fundamentals. I needed to learn the rules of business. And during that period, met some amazing people. One of the people I had moved on to had a great career in finance, and then eventually was brought into Bump as the CEO. And Bump was a roll-up. So it was a roll-up, I think, of 5 different companies at the time. He is the person who came in, great guy, a gentleman named Greg Spillane. He was the CEO of that company. He was looking for a tech guy who kind of knew business development and marketing, and that's really was my career. And we had known each other from business school, had a lot of mutual respect. So that's how I got back into the startup world. build. I was brought in as his COO, but really I was on the ground operator, right? And that's where a lot of this stuff happened, the pivot, the turnaround. And it was a very extensive turnaround with a lot of the different business units. We eventually rebranded it as events.com, but truly founded events.com kind of within this sort of incubation of these multiple companies, because that platform, which is still doing extremely well. I mean, although the event space is tough right today, but was doing extremely well, we built that from the ground up. So what ended up happening is Greg, who was the CEO at the time, decided to move outside of an operator role, and he moved back into VC, and he became an investor, and they started a fund, and they have a really successful fund. And he would bring me into these companies that they had invested in that had this like strong foundation, but were slightly distressed, were missing something, weren't quite getting their product out to market the right way,
Yep.
were maybe spending too much money, growth had stalled. And, I would come in and I would consult, very similar to you. It's like, hey, look, what are we trying to do here? Like, does this business unit make sense? Why don't we spin this off? Why don't we, go after this particular market? How are we doing sales? How are we doing growth? And I did that for a number of different companies, and I guess that's kind of where this reputation as a turnaround guy came from. And then he ultimately invested in Fancy. His fund put a sizable investment in Fancy. They were going through this kind of a restructuring. They had recapped at a lower valuation. But still two billionaires on the cap table, right?
Sure.
Toner, the Boston Celtics, is the chairman of our board. Yep. Caring Group, which owns like Balenciaga and Gucci, and Francois Pinault's, I think, net worth is close to $40 billion, is on the board of directors, one of our major investors. So there's this huge opportunity, lower valuation, and this person I had worked with for a really long time came aboard. He was on the board. I was actually working in some other company doing some different things, and I think he had a chance to kind of get to know the team that was in place, and he just saw issues, and he didn't feel like this was the team that was going to take him in the right direction. So he just asked me to come in initially as an outside consultant to evaluate, what do we have here? Like, is there something really here? And I came in as a consultant from the outside. I live in San Diego, company's based in New York. So I'm flying in New York on a really regular basis. And I fell in love with the company. I just like, dude, this thing's killer. It's like you said, it's this amazing brand. And there's this like foundation of assets that were sitting there. I mean, just on a day in, day out basis, we were having, tens of thousands of people that were visiting fancy.com or opening up the Fancy app. That, Fancy app still has almost like 3 million active installs. And there's this proprietary technology platform that had been built, the company had raised over $100 million, and they had built this unbelievable technology platform that was able to run a global marketplace at scale, right? It's not something that you can just sort of start up and build. There's no off-the-shelf product that did what we were able to do. And then the brand and, the users and the data. I mean, we had 12 million users on Fancy, right? And, the company was hemorrhaging money. When I walked in, I think we were losing somewhere in the $600,000-$700,000 a month range. It was just bloated. They had kind of started going in a lot of different directions. They had a retail location in Soho, New York that was beautiful, wasn't making any money. They were doing, outside promotions for companies. They were trying to license their software in kind of a SaaS business. And when we just really looked onto it, and the recommendation out of the board is like, hey, look, Fancy is the asset. It's the marketplace. It's the user base. Like, let's stop trying to do all these offline, non-digital things. Let's get back to the core of the business. And the board basically told me to put my money where my mouth is. It goes, all right, we like it. We like your idea. We like what you've done kind of as a consultant. Like, come run this thing. And it was just too great of an opportunity not to take it. So I was made the CEO in July of 2019, and we're cranking, man. It's been an awesome ride, and it is a cool company, and it's some of the most fun I've had professionally.
Yeah. I gotta say, man, this is the part that gets me going here. And I mentioned before being on the email list since late 2016. I specifically checked the entire history of emails that came from Fancy, right? And I started looking in January of 2019 to see if there was any kind of shift. And I have to say, even though it's so slight, I noticed a visible shift in the email marketing, something that became a little more appealing to me as the end user. And I love it. It's those tiny little shifts within an organization that can make a huge change. Let's talk about huge change for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Turnaround. This is my jam. 1 million unique website hits per month, 2 million active users on the Fancy app, 35,000, and I don't know if these are updated. These are as of the last article. 35,000 new app downloads per month, 60 to 70 million spent to build the proprietary software, 4.8 star app store rating, average order value went up by over 50% when you came on. IP invested, working on machine learning to improve product selections, affiliate and influencer programs implemented. Man, this is the stuff that it takes to turn. I'm looking at your whiteboard back there, and it looks like my whiteboard in the office. SEO, value, trust, loyalty programs, you know. I want to hear about, now that you've done this quite a few times as a consultant, as a CEO, as a COO, what's the process for you? Talk about what the turnaround process looks like for you from, evaluation to execution.
Yeah, that's a good question. You made a comment earlier about, one of the things that what did you learn early on? I know I talked a little bit about profitability, and you talked about leadership. And, when I was kind of running my own thing, I didn't have I don't know if I was a great leader, but at least these were people who I had hired and brought on. Where I really made some mistakes was when I did start doing turnarounds. And, you're brought into these organizations, and, there's a lot of stuff that's going wrong, right? Like if the company was going great, they're not going to bring in some outside guy to kind of like fix things.
Sure.
And the people aspect of it, and earning the trust of the people, and being too quick to make change, and being too quick to criticize past decisions, and being too critical, and to not really appreciate the work and efforts that have gone in, by different people and different things. I think, that hurt me. And I think I would have been much more effective earlier on in that perspective if I had had that, I guess, just EQ with how to deal with people. So, and the reason I say that is I think one of the things that I did really well with Fancy, and it was probably the toughest situation I've ever walked into. I mean, we had 50 employees and a lot of different business units, and we had to make some serious cuts. Like, we had to cut a lot of expense out of that company, and these are decisions that really impacted a lot of people's lives. And I had to do that while keeping the team. Right? Like, you can't lose the team. You can't have the people that you want to stay, or you need to stay, to walk out the door because they think that there's no future, there's no vision, or that the new leadership team, doesn't care about them, and all those types of things. So to get specific to your answer, and as much as I'd like to roll out sort of like my 5-point management philosophy or whatever it is, the first thing I do is I talk to every single person. I talk to them, I listen to them, I empathize with them, and I hold my tongue as much as I can. Do not come in and do not try to make changes. Do not try to criticize. Just talk. Let people talk to you. Ask them what's working, ask them what's not, and you'll get a real good feel for things really quickly. And a lot of times the changes that you're going to eventually make, because that's, why you come in, your team already knows it. They know what the changes need to be. You just got to kind of pull it out of them. And so that's what I do. I just get to know people. I let people to talk. I let people feel like they have a voice. And then, when you do have to make those changes eventually, a lot of times the people, feel like they were part of the process, and they're bought into that process. And there's a much better chance that they're going to, feel engaged and want to stay on board. And fortunately, for me, that's what happened at Fancy. And we were able to keep the people that we needed to keep. We have some phenomenal people that are still on the team, and they stayed through it. And there were some tough times, man, when I joined. I mean, we had to cut a lot of headcount. We had to cut a lot of costs to get things back on track. Yeah, I don't know if that answers it.
Oh man, it totally does. And you lit me up with one thing that you said. You just gave away the golden ticket, right? what you said about listening to everybody, speaking to everybody. A lot of people ask me, and I'm going to put us in the same boat just for purposes of this analogy here. But as corporate turnaround guys, consultants, a lot of people ask me how I have become so incredible at coming into an organization and figuring out what's wrong. And the thing that I always say to them, because I love giving it away, man, I never keep anything for myself, I give all this knowledge away, is exactly what you said. I don't know anything that you don't know, right? You guys already have the answers. I'm just coming in and asking you the questions that nobody's ever asked you before. I'm listening like nobody's ever done before. 9 times out of 10, the team, somebody on the team or a group of people on the team, they have the answer to fix the organization, but nobody's been listening, right? That's right. And that's the secret, everybody. That's the secret to this business. Just coming in and listening and working in a collaborative effort with the team and implementing on the ideas that nobody listened to before. It's the key to this. It's the key to this. So I love that, man. I love that. Hey, Fabrizio, do me a favor. Switch me over to that Toner Q9 microphone for that commercial. Is it on? Is it on? Check. 1, 2. Sibilance. Oh, man, this thing sounds great. Guys, this episode is sponsored by Toner. The Toner Q9 microphone. That is what I am recording this thing on right now, and it is easy to connect with both Mac and Windows computers. It's plug and play. No need to add any extra drivers, software, or sound cards. I'm talking to the people right now that feel upset about the poor quality of their video conferences, their podcasts. They're getting a lot of noisy background sound. It is time to ask for help from Toner. Toner is a world-famous microphone brand, provides desktop mics, mic kits, wireless mics, anything you need. Toner allows you to own high-quality professional audio recording devices without pinching your wallet. This mic right now, it's the all-in-one Toner Q9 mic kit, and it includes a condenser microphone, metal shock mount, adjustable suspension, scissor arm stand, desk mount clamp, pop filter, foam mic cover, a USB A to B cable, 1.8 meters. It's crazy. It's crazy what this includes. And it is fully built of metal to ensure long-lasting performance. The cardioid condenser, that's tech talk right there for you guys that don't understand. The capsule enables the Q9 to capture pristine and accurate sound and cancel noise from the surroundings. Perfect for recording and communicating. Right now, Toner is offering an exclusive 20% discount code for our audience. It's LaunchCast20. That's it. You're going to get the links down in the show notes. The promo code is LaunchCast20. You could find this thing on Amazon. You could find it at tonermic.com. Elevate your video conferences and your podcast to the next level, guys. Talk about for a minute before we start wrapping up. What are the goals for Fancy.com going forward?
Yeah, man, look, we there were a lot of structural kind of behind the scene things that, since I've been on board that we've gotten in place, which, just allows us to be a scalable business. Just some fundamentals just that were not happening in regards to customer service and customer experience and being, as user centric as we needed to be. Just quite frankly, like I think the company got into a bad situation where they were taking their own users a little bit for granted. Fulfillment wasn't always great. Quality wasn't always great. I think we had dropped a little bit on the integrity kind of behind who we were, and a little bit of that with our partners as well. I think we took a lot of our partners for granted. So where we're at is we really tried to fix that, and we instilled some core values and really have re-embraced customer centricity and being a trusted platform that not only has cool stuff, but has value behind that. There's real quality behind the products that people buy. There's, we're going to fulfill on it. We're going to be consistent on it. Kind of rebuilding that integrity within our company. And now that that foundation is in place, and I appreciate the kind words on the emails, and we have some great marketing people and some really talented people that care about the company, care about our customers in place. We believe that there's still a ton of opportunity to improve in regards to knowing our customer better, being more specific, more personalized, improving the overall user experience of our app, improving the user experience of Fancy.com. We talked about a little bit of some of the machine learning and AI type of stuff with recommendations, but just fundamentals around, search and, that type of stuff to just make it a little bit cleaner and better. And, at the end of the day, Fancy and kind of our core vision is, we want to be that place for the person that's looking to discover that really interesting, cool, unique product that, may be available on Etsy if you're willing to look through the 10 million other products that already exist, or could even be on Amazon. But how do you find it if you don't know it exists? So high curation, really try to bring value. We've historically had some really high-end products. I mean, $18,000 ping pong tables and stuff like that, which is great for, the 1% of the 1%, but want it to be an accessible experience. I think I heard you say somewhere, like when you get bored at night, you go online and you shop and buy things. And, I think you mentioned eBay and Amazon, and we want to be the place where it's like, hey, you get bored at night, you're going to go on Fancy, you're going to find killer, awesome stuff that's of value that you're going to buy, and it's going to consistently show up. And when it gets there, you're going to be delighted by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I want to do a little plug here because in my research, of course, I saw the crowdfunding campaign that you guys have with WeFunder.
Yeah.
So before I do that plug, first question, is that video on there? Is T-Pain really the VP of product testing for this company?
No, man, he's not the VP of product. No,
that was a great video.
Just a fan of the product, just a fan of the company. And that was just kind of a fun little thing he did. So.
Oh, that was a great video. Great video. So crowdfunding as an option, for what you guys are doing to raise some capital. Why go crowdfunding as an option?
Yeah, so I'll give you just a little bit of a background. So WeFunder is a company that the chairman of our board is also an investor in. So we have a connection from that. And we came in and we wanted to raise a small amount of money, almost like bridge capital, to get us through this period of transformation that we talked about. And I think our goal is we're going to probably go raise a bigger chunk and at a higher valuation with the idea of scale. I mean, we're not here to build a lifestyle company at Fancy. Like, what I mean by that is, the board isn't in place so that I can be the CEO of a company that spits off some cash and I can kind of live a comfortable life for the next 10 years. The board wants this thing to grow and become a household name and eventually, be acquired or have some kind of liquidity event, whatever that may be. So, we're raising this small amount of money, about $2.5 million. We're raising on a convertible note, a very attractive valuation considering the history of this company. There's like a $12 million valuation on the company right now, which, just the intrinsic assets of this company are worth more than that. Yeah. But, that because of the recap, that's where we're at. Our lead investor invested $1 million, committed $1 million right away up front. We were able to raise some additional money, but we looked at this crowdfunding thing, and I wasn't even that familiar with, is just a huge opportunity for us. Really, it wasn't the money as much as it was this ability to allow our fans and people who have been customers of the product an opportunity to kind of become part of the team, not just a customer of, but almost like a partner within. And then, truthfully, and just, you kind of think about it, having somebody invest in this company makes them a true advocate of us, right? They're going to be an evangelist and they're going to tell their friends about Fancy. And that's what we really wanted. And we saw that huge opportunity. So we're looking to raise up to $1 million of crowdfunding. It's not like a Kickstarter type of thing where, you get like a cool hat or a product if you invest. This is true equity. You're going to sit on our cap table next to, all the other people that are on our cap table. We think that the valuation is extremely attractive. We think the company's worth more than what we're raising money at. And, the goal is that we're going to build this thing up and eventually have a nice liquidity moment that's going to provide a really great return to all these investors that trusted us and put a little bit of money in this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, man, amazing. And you guys, I think, are a third of the way there to the $1 million goal for crowdfunding. And I do want to say that as a subscriber to Fancy.com, I just received an email yesterday, which is awesome, that adds investment perks. So anybody that's on Fancy.com, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but I got an email saying that if you join the crowdfunding campaign, 25% discount for life, free shipping for life, you get some merch, you get concierge service. So incredible, man. Good luck with that. I know you guys are going to kill it. Last point before we wrap up and move on to the big three. This is going to tie in the athlete in you, the executive in you. I'm going to pull a Twitter quote from you from January. Most people will cringe when I say that, but you're okay. You said it's feasible that next season Tom Brady plays for the Chargers and Phillip Rivers plays for the Patriots. If that were to occur, which team would have a better record? Now, obviously, I see you're a Chargers fan. You're a San Diego guy. And although you were off on the team, you were right about Brady jumping ship and eventually going to the Bucs. So this is a question that ties, the business side, particularly business leadership moving organizations. So you've been this person before, right? You've been the leader of a company that's moved to a different organization. And of course, in consulting, you're constantly jumping to different organizations. Bottom line, does the right leader have the ability to mold a team into winners, no matter what team it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Look, culture, and I know you talk, we're big believers, both of us, in culture, and we know the importance of culture. So much about culture is just, it's belief. It's alignment. It's approach, right? And I think that especially football, but in most business situations as well, the capabilities of greatness are in all of us, and they're in all of the players that are on that team, and they're in probably many of the employees that are sitting in underperforming organizations right now. And I think what Tom Brady or any great leader can do is they're going to change a mindset and a belief within that organization that you can win. And you can be successful, and it's going to be crystal clear. I guarantee you, in the Bucs locker room, there is a goal in mind, and it is the Super Bowl. And and you better believe that we can win that Super Bowl, or you're not going to be a part of that team. And when you get all those players and all those people aligned and all believe in the same thing, there's no reason why they can't do what they believe they can do. I mean, the talent's in them, and I think that applies in any business setting as well.
And of course, there's Gronk too, which helps the situation.
Yeah, Gronk doesn't hurt, and they got a great head coach up there. And I mean, look, Tom Brady's walking into an amazing situation.
Yeah,
and that offense is killer.
Yeah,
and he stacked weapons. We just talking about that kind of football. Father Time is undefeated, man. I mean, Brady's my age, and we'll see. I mean. Football is, we talked about, it's a meritocracy, and Brady's, arguably the greatest. And I mean, God, I got so much respect for that guy, but age is age. We'll see. I'm really curious to see how it's going to work out.
We will follow up at the end of the season for sure. For sure. I will follow up with you. Yeah. Guys, let's jump into the big three.
The big three from the Launchcast.
The big three. We are going to list some cool stuff, and Greg is going to give us his top three for each one. Quick, concise answers. Ready, Greg?
All right, man. Let's do
it.
All
right. Number one, give me the top three things that you make sure you cover in every team meeting.
Oh, man. When we do a lot of team meetings and people go around, top three things I like to make sure that we cover is what are the most important things you've accomplished? What are the most important things that you have on your plate that you need to accomplish? And then acknowledgments. Very big in acknowledgments, like my team to go around and talk about the other things that people in the organization are doing that stand out.
Yeah. Top three moments playing for the Aztecs in college.
We beat, we beat Utah in an overtime game one time where we had to come back from a couple touchdowns back. And I just remember at the end of that game, like crying with joy. It was just such an emotional experience. We had a chance to beat Oklahoma when I was there. We put up like 48 points on them. And then I played one time in Wisconsin, and they had like 90,000 fans all dressed in red doing the wave in slow motion, fast motion, and then normal motion. And it was just like the most like surreal experience to see.
Love it. Love it. So this is going to be a tough one to answer. Top 3 turnaround accomplishments.
Top 3 turnaround accomplishments. Yeah, I mean, look, we had a chance to take a company that was kind of a mom and pop software player. We built them up and got them acquired by Granicus. That's how my tie with Granicus came. That a major software company. We implemented basically the entire go-to-market strategy, ran a rebrand, and like tripled revenues in 18 months. I'm super proud of my time at events.com and taking what was really more of a concept and kind of an incubation and building this company that still exists today, that I have so many friends that still work with and has been as successful as it has. And then, being able to, go into Fancy and, take them from where they were when I joined, which was honestly a company that may not have made it, and get us to the position we're at today.
Yeah, love it. Speaking of Fancy, give me your 3 favorite things about Fancy as an organization.
We have some killer people that are really fun to work with on a daily basis. It's a fun brand. I mean, it's like I could have only have dreamed about working for a company that's like core is like, hey, tell me about your company. And you're like, yeah, we're a company that just like finds and sells the coolest stuff in the world. And then we have this super VIP list that I get a special email when certain people buy things. And so I get all these emails of super VIPs, and you click on them, and then you see these like celebrities or like, household names that, me and you would definitely know. I won't use their names, but you're like, holy crap, that person just bought something on Fancy. Like, how cool is that? And so every time I get one of those, it's like opening up a little present, because you click on it, you never know who's going to be like on the other end of it. So that's one of my favorite things on a daily basis, to see what super VIP bought something today. Amazing.
Yeah. We didn't get too much of a chance to talk about fatherhood. If you come on again, I hope you come on again. Yeah. We'll get deep into that, man, because it's something I'm so passionate about. And I know it's such a part of leadership, right? Being a dad.
It's the best, man. It's the best. Those little girls got my heart. That's for sure.
Give me and try and do this. I'm not going to say proudest. Give me 3 proud moments as a dad that you've had. Any 3. We're not ranking these. We're not ranking them.
Oh my God, yeah. My youngest daughter, my 7-year-old. I'll start my first one. My oldest daughter is a jock. I mean, she's a badass athlete. She's just tall, lean, athletic. She's fiery. She's a killer. So watching her like compete and become an athlete, I'm extremely proud of that. And, but my youngest has never been the jock. She just never really cared. But, so this is my second one. She watched that, movie with, Bethany, the girl who got her arm bit.
Oh yeah. We just watched that 2 weeks ago.
Dude, my daughters love that movie, and my youngest is obsessed with it. And she's like, "Dad, I want to surf. I want to surf. I want to surf."
Wow.
So I take her surfing. We live in San Diego, and she is the most determined little girl. And in the last 3 weeks, the girl has like taught herself how to surf. And she goes out there, and I'll sit there in the ocean, and she'll paddle out on herself, and she'll see a wave, and she'll jump on her little surfboard that we bought her. She'll paddle in her wave. She'll catch a wave, and she surfs waves now, which is unbelievable.
Amazing.
And so great. So that's 2. And then, man, I don't know. They're just amazing.
I'll take 2.
They're like inspirational for me.
I'll take 2.
We'll leave it at that.
All right.
2 kids.
We're going to break the rule for the last one. There's only one answer for this. Give me the Super Bowl favorite for this year.
Super Bowl favorite for this year, assuming we have a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. Assuming.
Yeah. Good question. I'm going to go with the Chiefs again, man. I think Mahomes is he's a special dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And just bought into the Royals, right? Part of the ownership group now.
He did.
Amazing.
And then Kelsey's one of those guys that's popped up a couple times on my VIP list. So I I think he's the best tight end in the game.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm still going to say, even though it'll never happen in a million years, I got to stick with my Jets. Even though Jamal Adams is gone, I got to stick with my Jets.
Yeah,
we're not going to make it, but I got to believe, right? That's how it works in sports.
Adams is. I think that's a good trade for you guys.
I think so too.
You got a lot in return for that.
Oh, 2 first-rounders and more.
A lot in return. So.
Yeah, amazing. Greg, obviously the company's out in New York, so you're in New York often, right?
I was.
Oh, okay.
Well,
not now, right?
We're living in the twilight zone, right? So, I think I spent, and that was tough with the kids. I spent like 27 round trip tickets in 2019 flying in New York and back. I'm in San Diego now. We did open up an office out here.
Oh, amazing.
We started to build our team here. So we're bi-coastal. I haven't been in New York really since kind of the shutdown. And, most of the team's working remote, I think, as a lot of companies are. And that's going great. I don't think you can completely substitute face-to-face, and especially with a startup and the need for innovation and collaboration and kind of like being able to like evolve. So we do try to do some face-to-face stuff when we can, but have not been New York in a while. Yeah.
Well, next time you're out here or if I'm out in San Diego, man, I'd love to sit down and talk shop, man. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. This has been a great combo. Hang out for 2 seconds while I outro this. Guys, you catch this every single Monday, 6 a.m. We release a new episode every single Monday. I can't wait till this one is out. And we have, after this one, 4 more full live interview episodes before we go to the Launchcast reboots and then into season 2 in December. Guys, we'll see you next week.
Launch sequence terminated.
Into the black hole.
Thanks for listening to the Launchcast today. Please make sure to subscribe to this feed wherever podcasts are available. Follow me, George Andriopoulos, at Launchpad CEO on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And make sure to visit our website, guys, thelaunchcast.com. Looking forward to the next episode. See you soon, guys.